This Iran deal is getting uber confusing, but we're here to simplify it all on today's episode. We're going to be talking about Iran, Trump, Netanyahu, the internal politics, the external politics, what's going on with the war, what's going on with the hostages, what is happening here in Israel on this episode of Meira K. But first, what is making Meira mad today? And it is the media's representation of Netanyahu once again. So yesterday, Netanyahu gives this speech, and I thought it was amazing. It was heroic, it was strong, and most importantly, it attacked the voices who are attacking Netanyahu. Because you know what? If someone comes at you, you should respond, okay? And guess what? The Israeli media decided that they just don't need to show any of this to the public, and they cut down parts of the speech. Now, if you've heard of Ynet, Chadashot 13, or even Kan 11, okay? Quite well-known media sources here in Israel, most of them are leaning left. And you would think that the media in Israel would have an obligation to share Netanyahu's speech about what's going on in the war. But no, lo and behold, they decided they can cut, edit it, change it as they would like because it didn't align with their agenda. And that's something we're going to touch upon a lot this episode. The agenda, the behind the scenes, what's really happening that we're not being told about. But first, let's talk about what Netanyahu spoke about in his speech. Let's watch this bit.
הנחיתי את צה"ל להגיב בתקיפות ולהגביר עוד יותר את הלחץ על חמאס. אנחנו במלחמת התקומה, מלחמת 7 החזיתות. למלחמה זו יש מחירים כבדים מאוד, כי כל אובדן כזה הוא עולם ומלואו. אבל אין לנו, כעם חפץ חיים, שום ברירה, אלא להמשיך ולהילחם על עצם קיומנו עד הניצחון. אזרחי ישראל, כראש הממשלה שלכם, אני לא אכנע.
Netanyahu says really clearly, we are not stopping the war. We cannot stop the war. Not because we don't want to stop the war, but because to get the hostages home, we have to ensure that we win militarily. And what does winning militarily look like? Yes, it looks like bringing the hostages home. Yes, it looks us taking over more and more of Gaza. Why? Because we've seen, proven to us, that the way we've been doing it up until this point, where we go in, try and remove Hamas terrorists and leave, doesn't work because the whole country has become a terror hub. So we have to go in and take over more land, which is what's been happening. But most importantly, he refutes this idea that the left in Israel has been throwing around like candy as if it is the absolute truth. The idea that what we just have to do is lie in the negotiations, agree to a full-time ceasefire, get the hostages out, all of the hostages, because Hamas just obviously are dying to give us the hostages, and then we can resume the war. Netanyahu attacks this point, saying that Hamas are terrorists. They're evil people, but they're not stupid people. They've been watching everything that we've been doing, and they've honestly oftentimes been one step ahead of us. They will demand a UN resolution. And what does a UN resolution mean? Well, it means that it would have the word of Russia, China, and the US, big, important countries in the world, confirming to Hamas that we will not resume the war. And Israel will not go against such a resolution, which means that our hands would be tied. If we stop the war, we cannot continue the war. It's self-explanatory. More to the point, it's not the government that is stopping the hostage deal. It's not. It's Hamas. Hamas never want to let all the hostages go, which is why, once again this week, they've rejected a ceasefire agreement because their basic demand is the war has to completely end. And we know that we can't do that because once they make us agree to that, we'll have to keep to that, and then they're not going to release the hostages because why would they? It's their only card that they have left. We have strangled them. We've strangled them financially. We're strangling them militarily. We're taking over their land bit by bit by bit. There's uproars within the country, people trying to take over Hamas from inside. They have no money left. They have no food left. We are in discussions of bringing back the aid, which is utter insanity. Once again, they don't deserve any of our aid until our hostages are home. But this whole idea that it is Netanyahu, he is the one who has the power over releasing the hostages, is insanity. There are two ways to get the hostages home, and we have to remember that at the back of that is the fact that Hamas are never going to give them all back, and the legitimacy that we have to do this militarily right now will not be forever. And so I'm mad. Last night, Netanyahu's son gets engaged, and the whole media comes after him claiming, how dare he go and celebrate because there was a casualty during the fighting in Gaza. I don't know if you heard, but we had our first casualty, unfortunately, yesterday after months of not having any IDF soldiers killed, and it was really hard to hear. And Netanyahu started his speech with this, and it was a very moving and important thing for the leader of our country to say. We hate casualties. It hurts us. But this media obsession with thwarting everything that is being said. Like, here's another good example. Netanyahu's spokesman yesterday came out saying that there is no way for us to get all of the hostages out in one fellow sweep. Okay? Meaning, there's not going to be a deal that gets all of them out in one go. But the media in Israel translated this and just quoted, we're not going to be able to get the hostages out. It's a lie. It's an outright lie. The media lies to us all of the time, and we have an obligation to try and understand what is the context, why are these things happening, what is the story that we're not hearing. And to that end, let's jump into Iran, because this Trump deal is confusing. I was confused. I spent hours this week trying to understand what exactly is going on. So we had this vague statement from Witkoff, who, as everybody's probably familiar with at this point, he is the envoy from Trump to the Middle East. He's trying to broker this deal. He was trying to do stuff with hostages as well. He's trying to figure out how to stop Iran from having a nuclear deal. Because, and very, very simply, a terror state should not have nuclear abilities. I know, it's mind-blowing. It's a crazy thought to have. It's almost like saying a child shouldn't have a gun. Well, people who have proclaimed themselves as terrorists, as people who want to end the West, who are starting with Israel but then plan on going to America, just shouldn't become nuclear superpowers. Shouldn't. It's pretty simple. Now, what was proposed in 2015, which you're probably hearing about, is this idea of allowing Iran to have a little bit of nuclear ability, up to 3.67, okay, of uranium enrichment, whatever that means, a little bit of nuclear ability, and not more than that. And Trump was against that deal. But then a few days ago, Witkoff comes out saying, yeah, we're maybe going to allow that. And everybody freaked. Israel freaked. Why did Israel freak? Because our biggest threat to this country, no, it's not Hamas, no, it's not Hezbollah, no, it's not Houthis, no, it's not Syria, no, it's not Iraq. It is the Islamic Republic of Iran, which has been funding all of these entities. We know that. We've discussed it. But specifically, them having nuclear abilities means that we are up against a very, very serious enemy. And Netanyahu made this clear in his speech yesterday. Iran will not have nuclear abilities. If we have to do it militarily, we will. And there was a hope and an expectation in Israel that Trump was going to support that. But it turns out that Trump kind of doesn't. Or maybe he does, but we're not exactly sure. We're never really sure with Trump. But specifically right now, this is what's happening. Witkoff says this statement that we're considering allowing Iran to have a little bit of uranium or whatever it's called. Trump obviously reaches out to him and says, no, that was incorrect, because Witkoff then comes out really quickly with a statement clarifying, saying, no, we want to disarm them completely. Again, going back to the child example, instead of us saying we're going to give the kid the gun and hope that he doesn't shoot it, we're saying a kid can't have a gun. Iran can't have nuclear abilities. Now, out of respect for Trump, Netanyahu, instead of saying, no, that's not going to work, has said, I don't think that diplomatic talks, us negotiating with Iran to try and get them out of having a nuclear deal, is going to work, but we're going to do it your way. And if the time comes where that doesn't work, then we're going to intervene militarily. We need to try and understand why Trump is not interested in going right into the military side of things, because that would be the most easy thing to do, right? Israel's ready, Israel's waiting. And then in the midst of this whole complicated topic, it gets leaked to the public, okay? The New York Times does an expose where it is leaked to him the details of the plan that Israel had to eliminate the nuclear things in Iran. So let's just clarify. We have Trump maybe potentially backtracking, but then coming back again to say, no, Iran can't have anything. Netanyahu really wanting a military operation to remove their nuclear abilities instead of conversations. Iran coming to the table and saying, okay, we'll negotiate with you. Why are Iran open to negotiating when their nuclear ability is the last thing that they have? And all in all, it's a little bit confusing, but I think it's not that hard to understand. Trump wants to de-escalate everything that's going on in the Middle East, right? He wants to de-escalate it. He doesn't want Iran to have this. So he's hoping that we can do this through some sort of negotiations, because Iran have lost all of their cards. Okay, I mean, there's no Hezbollah, there's no Hamas. Like, everything is falling apart. Everything that they had, every check piece that they had. Okay, I heard this example from an official here in Israel who's talking about how it's a game of chess, right? Iran has lost almost all of their pieces except for their queen, except for the nuclear abilities. So they're in negotiations. And the reason Iran is happy to come to the negotiating table is because they feel they can extend this. They're a few weeks away from probably having nuclear abilities. So if they can just slowly drag out these conversations, either they'll be able to build up their nuclear abilities till there's no going back, or they will be able to regroup and build up their other forces that have been so squatted, destroyed, destructed by Israel. No one gives Netanyahu enough credit at the moment, and it really, really frustrates me. I'm always being told, oh, you're such a Bibi lover. No, not exactly. But I think if you look at this war, and I think if you see where the Middle East is now, compared to where it was a year ago, it is absolutely flabbergasting. We have eliminated so much of the leadership. Hezbollah, Syria, Iraq, Lebanon, Yemen, Hamas. I mean, almost all the leadership's gone. We have crippled them immensely. We have crippled them financially. We have made massive, massive strides and changes. And now Netanyahu is promising to end the Iran deal. And there's only two reasons that it was leaked. Either it was the Israelis hoping to make Trump look bad, saying, hey, we have a plan. Trump, remember? We need to get rid of Iran. Or it was the Americans saying, we don't want Israel to attack right now, so here are the details, and the element of surprise is lost. Either way, whichever one you think, this was a setback and a really bad leak, but that's what we see in the Israeli media and in American media. We see leaks of very, very high security things, which can have real impact, really, really dangerous. And it's a shame. But at the end of the day, you know where I stand. I support the ending of Iran's nuclear abilities, not the limiting, not the minimizing, not the slowing, not the negotiating, not the democratic discussions, the diplomatic debates, none of that. Military force, get rid of the most threatening thing possible for a country to own, especially a country that wants us all dead. I don't know why everybody doesn't agree with me, but maybe one day everyone will start to see reason. I don't think that I'm so smart. I just think it's pretty self-explanatory. You don't give a kid a gun. You don't give a terrorist a nuclear ability. And whilst we're on the topic of things being leaked to the public, that was the Iran deal. Pretty self-explanatory. They're currently in negotiations. They're currently discussing, should this deal move forward? How? What's Iran going to give up? Is it going to give it up? Should it give it up? And if not, how are we going to deal with them militarily? In Israel, we are dealing with our own shenanigans because the Shin Bet is once again back. Now, hopefully you remember Ronen Bar, the head of the Shin Bet, the head of the internal intelligence, and he has finally announced that he is going to resign. It's only taken him a month of dominating the headlines when he should be a totally irrelevant part of the conversation. But he has announced that he is going, and it is about time. And he's probably going to do it around the time that the Supreme Court is going to make a decision about if the government is allowed to get rid of him or not. And once again, it's an insane discussion to be having because the law is clear as day. And this is probably going to be an opportunity for the Supreme Court to get out of it. They've kind of moved too far and they know it by saying that there is some space for them here to kind of decipher what the law meant. The law was very clear, very intentional. The government can get rid of the head of the internal intelligence if they don't feel like they can work with him. That's obviously what's been happening here. And so my bets are that the Supreme Court are going to try and just pull out and not make a decision. But the Supreme Court has two choices. Either they backtrack, which they should do. Just remove themselves from this conversation because it was not in their jurisdiction. The law was clear. It didn't need any deciphering, but they've been postponing and postponing and postponing. Now that Ronen Bar is leaving, the issue's resolved itself. They don't have to deal with it. But potentially, this could really happen because for some reason they like to overstep every single boundary that they have. They might decide to anyway come out with a judgment saying what they think. Does the government have jurisdiction or not? And that's just going to get them into more hot water. So I'd avoid it like the plague. But you know what? Again, they're just not listening to me right now, which is a shame because they wouldn't be in this hot mess if they did. So let's backtrack to understand what happened with the Shin Bet. A few months ago, the Shin Bet launched a secret investigation into the Israeli police. Why? Under the guise of the fact that the Israeli police is actually Kahanism in disguise. What's Kahanism? You might have seen these slogans everywhere in Israel. Kahana Tzadak, this idea of this Rabbi Kahana, he believed that all Arabs need to be removed, and he kind of ish supported the idea of, I don't want to say Jewish terrorism because I don't really believe in that, but the idea that all forces need to be used to get rid of Arab Muslim civilians here in the country because they are nothing but trouble, okay? They're seen and classified almost everywhere as very, very extreme right-wing Jews, okay? So the Shin Bet launches this investigation into Kahanism, trying to figure out, is the Israeli police actually a terrorist organization, which, surprise, surprise, it is not, and they come up short. They have nothing. But now Ronen Bar has gotten the head of the Attorney General involved in this, and it's kind of embarrassing, so they decide to do another thing. And they go after Ben Gvir, who's in charge of the police at the moment. And they go after this, and they go after that. And then, when again, they keep on coming up short because there is nothing to this effect. There is no proof whatsoever. Instead of saying, okay, that was a bad investigation, it came up short, there's nothing we can do about it, they decide to arrest the person that leaked this to the public. Now, how did they arrest this worker of the Shin Bet? By claiming that he's leaking private information. But what he leaked is nothing because they didn't find anything. So they arrest this guy claiming that the Shin Bet is exposing high intelligence information, when actually all this guy was saying is this was a bogus investigation. It was a waste of our resources. It wasn't true. And that makes Ronen Bar look really bad. Anyway, all around, this Ronen Bar guy is just looking... It's just not looking good. It's just not looking good at all. He's been asked to move. He won't step down. He's caused chaos. He's responsible for October 7th. That's clear. Everybody can see it, except for the people who really believe the Israeli media, which is just honestly insanity and sad. So he's deciding to step down, which is really nice because hopefully we can move forward not just into not focusing on this media nonsense of Israeli politics, which should not be our focus during a war, just shouldn't. But actually, we could hopefully have a new head of the intelligence who works for the Jewish people, who works for Israel, who instead of focusing on trying to create this whole idea that settlers are the worst thing that ever happened to the country, and then the terrorists and the police and blah, 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 all of this rubbish that has been coming out day in and day out from the Shin Bet, they can focus on Hamas. I mean, have you noticed the difference of the intelligence that we have up north on Hezbollah, i.e. the beepers, versus what we've been dealing with down south? Somebody somewhere down south is not doing their job. And now we know why, because they're focusing on trying to find the evil terror within the Jewish people instead of focusing outward, where they should. So that is going to be good riddance, and he can't be gone fast enough, and I can't be happier that this is finally, hopefully, somewhat going to come to an end. So things are slowly starting to move back into place, right? You've got the Shin Bet maybe moving into the place that it should have always been. Hopefully the judiciary is going to kind of move out of the public sphere. Iran will be dealt with militarily, ideally, or diplomatically if Trump gets his way, which he tends to do. We've got Israel committing to continuing this war in full power, and we're really seeing it work. Hamas is struggling economically extremely. They are completely strangled by what we're doing. We're taking over more and more land, which is amazing and exactly where we should be. We've just celebrated the Chag Pesach, and I was in a hotel over Pesach, and I was with some of the hostage families. And everyone kept asking me, saying to me, like, did you go talk to them? Did you ask them questions? And I was like, no, they're not animals in a zoo for me to pet and talk to and look at and take pictures with. They're human beings who have been severely traumatized. And I think that brings us back to this conversation about the hostages, the released hostages, and the hostages inside. Unfortunately, it's becoming clearer and clearer by the day. Hamas are not going to let all hostages go. They're not going to let all the hostages go. But what they are doing is trying to use the hostages who are still alive to cause more and more anti-government propaganda. And how are we seeing this? By the videos that they're releasing, okay? They keep taking these poor hostages and recording them, forcing them to say certain things. One of the things that they're touching upon is this idea that we've seen lately, a few hundred reservists signing letters saying that the war needs to end, okay? Now, why do I say a few hundred, and why do I say reservists? Number one, the majority of the country is reservists, okay? So people who haven't been in the army for years and years and years could still be considered reservists. The majority of the people signing these letters, and it's not a big majority, it's a few hundred people, are people who are actually not actively serving. But these letters are saying something along the lines of the war needs to end, the hostages need to be prioritized, okay? And the IDF is doing everything in its power to actually respond to it properly. Okay, and to say, if you sign this letter, you are out because politics can't be a part of the army. Okay, that makes sense to me. But guess what Hamas is doing? Hamas is now using these letters, okay, which are a few hundred out of hundreds of thousands of people serving this country diligently, who want this war to continue, who want to win, who really, really are giving their all, sacrificing their families and their time and potentially their lives. The media is making it sound like these letters are the be-all and end-all of what's happening right now. This is what the entire Israeli people feel, which is just not true. And Hamas is using it to their benefit. And I just want to remind you, if you're somebody that works in the Israeli media, if you're somebody who's propagating these ideas, listen to the hostages who are being released, who are saying that us acting without unity, us fighting against our government, us eating into Hamas's hand and doing what they want is what is stopping the hostages getting released. Hamas have pulled back from the ceasefire deal for one reason and one reason only, because they're starting to see, once again, cracks in the unity. They're starting to see this kind of like small niche group that the media is making out to be a huge group fighting against the government, fighting against the IDF, and they think they can use it to their advantage. And I'm here to say that they can't and they shouldn't. And we have a responsibility. If you care about the hostages being released, you need to stop hating on our government. You can disagree with everything that they're doing. I disagree with a lot of stuff that they're doing, but you have to stop giving Hamas more ammunition. We have to stop it. I'll say this once and I'll say it again. It is the most evil thing that happened during this war that we turn these hostages into political pawns. We've turned them into political pawns and it's wrong. It's not okay. They're not something for us to stare at. They're not something for us to gawk at. And they're definitely not something for us to use to get rid of a government that people don't like. I know a lot of people hate our government. I understand it. I have a lot of frustrations myself, but it is not the time to deal with it. Right now is the time to show a strong front and to fight back against our real enemies, to get rid of Iran, to get rid of Hamas, to hopefully get as many hostages home as we can, to get rid of Hezbollah, to get rid of the threats that we are dealing with, be united in that, and then we can go back to re-elections. We can go to elections and vote in, hopefully, somebody better. I don't know who you're going to suggest. I'm not sure that we have a better leader for the country than Bibi Netanyahu right now. I would like somebody to suggest somebody who would be better, but that's not the case right now. So that's what we're dealing with. And I think it's time for people to stop complaining, stop blaming, and actually just focus on the fact that we are doing miraculously well in a miraculous time. We have changed the Middle East, and let's just be grateful for that and pray and pray and pray and do everything in our power to get as many of the hostages home without causing more hatred and thinking that that's going to be the solution. There have been two really nice pieces of news that have come out of this whole thing this week, and I'm sure you all saw the beautiful dog Billy. Oh my gosh, this is so moving. Well, I'm a massive dog lover, and it doesn't help that the dog that I have, my King Charles, my beautiful, beautiful puppy, is a spitting image of Billy. Okay, so the story is like this. Billy was kidnapped from Nir Oz, from its owners. One of its owners was killed, and they thought it had died or had been killed in Gaza. And last week, he was found. This beautiful, beautiful puppy was found and rescued from Gaza and returned to his owners. And we need more heartwarming stories like this. And another beautiful story is the fact that Noah Argamani, who was rescued by our brave, brave IDF soldiers and brought home to Israel, is named as one of Time's 100 people. And I love this. I absolutely love this. I think it is so, so important for us to recognize we are having an impact. People are having an impact. The Jewish people are having an impact, a positive one. One of the most 100 influential people. They are going out there and they're doing God's work. And it is just so important to remember that this time last year, she was a hostage. And now she's out there on the biggest stages, making waves, changing the way the world is perceiving what the Israeli people have gone through. And Noah, we are eternally grateful for you. We are so happy you're home. And we really, really hope that everybody will be home soon, reunited and safe. Other things that have happened this week, there have been a surprising amount of people disappearing here in Israel, which is random and weird. And we often talk about Israel in kind of the geopolitical sphere, but there's also a lot of internal issues here, you know? Like things go wrong here. There is a mafia in Israel and there are people disappearing and there are a lot of them, which is kind of surprising and really sad and something that hopefully our resources can figure out because there's absolutely no reason that we should have internal crime as well as external, but I guess it makes sense. Additionally to that, the conversation once again of if we should have a death row here in Israel has come up. Why? Because an indictment has been put forward against a few of the Nukhba terrorists here in Israel, and they're debating if they should do one big indictment or individuals. And people are wondering, what is the solution? How do you deal with this? And I don't know that I have a good answer because I feel quite strongly that death chair, a death sentence, I don't want Israel to be involved with it. But then also, what do you do for Nukhba terrorists? Like, these people are the worst of the worst of the worst. So they just allowed to survive to then be released in another deal. And hopefully, if we have it our way and everything's changed, then there won't be another release deal because this is not going to happen. We're not allowed to give these people the hope that they can just be the worst terrorists in the world and then they'll just be released because they managed to steal more hostages. Like that's just not going to work for us and that needs to change. And that's what we're working on right now. In a summary of this week, even though we've had so many different stories, right? We've got the political stories, we've got the Iran stories, we've got the Trump stories, we've got America-Israel relations, we've got internal relations, we've got politics, we've got so much happening all of the time. There is something to remember, and I will end on this note. Yes, we have enemies. We have lots of enemies. Yes, we have internal issues, lots of internal issues, but it is important to notice and to think about and to be grateful every single day for the fact that we have changed the status quo. Things are changing. There are individuals out there doing such amazing things, changing things left, right, and center. Bibi Netanyahu has done an incredible job at changing the sphere. We've got Trump's backing. We've got a military going like never before on Gaza, which again is something to be celebrated because there is no space for terrorism. There's no space whatsoever in this world for people who just want to evilly eliminate people who think differently to them. I know that's how Israel is described. I know that people imagine us to be this genocidal nation, but the truth is we are not. We are fighting for truth, and truth at the end of the day is the most important thing to be focused on. When you have the media lying at you, and you have the people lying at you, and you have government officials lying at you, people often say to me, how could you support Bibi? He is such an evil and self-obsessed person. I'm like, yeah, well, every politician is. And that often surprises people. What do you mean? What do you mean? Every politician has self-interest unless they're altruistic. If they're altruistic, they're not going to succeed in politics. But they all care the most about themselves. The thing about Bibi Netanyahu is that he also cares about Israel, which is a real positive. And he has taken us through one of the worst times into what will become the golden age for Israel. And we all have to remember that. We get so stuck in the weeds that we don't think about the bigger picture. And the bigger picture is miraculous. And so on that note, I just want to remind everybody, we are going to be okay. The news is crazy. It's confusing. Israel is the political reality TV show of the world. And I hope you're enjoying watching. We will see you here next time. I'm Meira, and that's a wrap.